And Holly Williams is joining us right now on the phone from northern Iraq. And I just want to let our viewers know she's on the phone. She's obviously in the middle of a war zone, so there may be some communications issues. But Holly, thank you so much for calling in. As week 2 of this battle for Mosul gets underway, what are you seeing there on the ground from the Iraqi, Kurdish, and U.S. forces, as well as the retaliations by ISIS?
Well, Vlad, Kurdish and Iraqi forces are within 10 miles of Mosul, perhaps within 5 miles. According to some accounts. We have to be careful because the Iraqi forces in particular have a habit of saying that they've actually liberated a village or a town when there's still fighting going on there. But they've definitely taken back a whole series of towns and a lot of villages. There haven't been any major setbacks per se, but it's slow going on the front line. And this is really the definition of asymmetrical warfare. You know, where you have one side, you know, the U.S. coalition and its Iraqi allies on the ground that have all the technology on their side. They have airstrikes, they have helicopter gunships, they have, you know, artillery and armored vehicles. And then on the other side, we're seeing ISIS wage a guerrilla war where they're relying on suicide bombers, car bombs, you know, tunnels that they have dug underneath villages, you know, roadside improvised bombs. So this is not at all a conventional war, and it's difficult for the forces who are waging it on the ground.
Holly, I don't know if we have a map back there in the control room, but I want you to explain to our viewers why Mosul is so important, what it means for Iraq's future. This ancient city there, very, very close to Syria and obviously in Iraq. What is the importance of that strategic city?
Well, it's one of Iraq's biggest cities. Before ISIS blitzed across northern Iraq, it was Iraq's second biggest city, perhaps not now. Some civilians have left. It's Iraq's biggest predominantly Sunni Muslim city, very important for Sunni Muslims in this country. You know, I think that the big fear here is that after this battle, and you know, the assumption is that the U.S. coalition, along with Iraqi ground forces, are going to be able to take back Mosul. ISIS has around 5,000 fighters in the city. It will no doubt be messy, but the assumption is that it will be possible to take it back. The fears aren't for the battle so much, but for Mosul's future, and that in the aftermath of the battle, we will see chaos and, you know, retributive violence. Mosul is a predominantly Sunni Muslim city, but it's also ethnically mixed, and it's, you know, it's a complicated place. And I think the fear is of a kind of worst-case scenario where you see one of the Sunni militias that's involved in the fighting, perhaps one of, you know, the main Sunni leaders in this region, going into the city and making a power grab or staking a claim. And that then angers the Iraqi government in Baghdad, which is dominated by Shiite Muslims. And they then send in the Shiite militias. Up until now, it's thought that they won't be sent into the city. But if they were, then we could see Mosul going down this sort of spiral of retributive violence and sectarian conflict. And remember, it's that kind of chaos that allowed ISIS to gain ground here in Iraq in the first place.
Holly, I want to ask you one last question. This is about the looming humanitarian crisis that we may start to see as refugees leave that city. What are you seeing? What's being done on the ground? Obviously, we remember that image of the little boy in Syria. I wonder what that cost, the human cost, away from the fighting, away from the soldiers and the rebels, what you're seeing as far as people who are suffering under this new offensive.
Well, you bring up that image of the little boy who survived the airstrike in Syria, and that's really important because, of course, you know, once these troops go into Mosul city, it's quite possible that U.S. coalition airstrikes won't be as useful as they have been because there are around 1 million civilians in Mosul, and nobody wants to risk mass civilian casualties. Now, at this point, since the Mosul offensive began, we are seeing very few people come out of the city, but that is probably because ISIS is preventing them from leaving. There may be a flood of people once the fighting actually reaches the urban areas. We don't know. The Iraqi government clearly has a preference for people to stay in place during the fighting. You know, will people do that? You know, we're going to have to wait and see. But I think that the civilians of Mosul are a huge question when it comes to this conflict. Will they rise up and join this offensive against ISIS? Because remember, when ISIS first swept into Mosul, many civilians were on the street cheering. They saw them as revolutionaries, as heroes. It's been 2 years since then. People have been living under their barbaric rule. Presumably, many of them have changed their minds about ISIS. But will they rise up and actually assist this offensive to retake the city?
The big question. Holly Williams on the ground for us, reporting as this offensive to take Mosul continues. Holly, we appreciate your reporting as always. Thank you.